Hey, Brian, welcome.
Hi, Rajat. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. We're excited to get to know you and MarketWise a little bit. And to the audience joining, we're excited to have Brian Elliot from MarketWise here with us. We're going to continue down the path of talking about how identity transformation, how cloud transformation, security, all these major topics are affecting us in IT today. And I'm excited to hear a little bit about how Brian thinks about the problem. So, we're here to give people lots of thoughts, advice, ideas, maybe stir the pot a little bit and come up with some new ideas. And but no, I'm super excited to have you here. And Brian, why don't we kick off with just a little bit about you, your background, how you made your way to MarketWise, and tell us a little bit about MarketWise too.
Sure thing. Yeah, so I've been in IT for, I guess, coming up on 30 years now. Started off way back in the day, working in some small data centers and stuff like that, and kind of branched out into different things, and then got more into the cloud space. So I'm at MarketWise. I've been at MarketWise for a little over 7 years now. I'm the VP of Technology Operations there. I was brought into MarketWise, and it was a different name back then. It was Stansberry Research, but I was brought into MarketWise to basically build out their IT infrastructure from an IT operations perspective, not the development side of things, but more on the laptops, network infrastructure, phone systems, that kind of stuff. And then I've been doing that, and probably about 2 years ago, it kind of started to parlay into more of the security side of things. 5 years ago, we would have probably never thought the security would be what it is today. How crazy things have been. So I've kind of slowly geared more towards that, taking my IT background and leveraging that on the security side of things. Yeah, that's pretty much, in a nutshell, that's my experience.
Awesome. So, tell us a little bit about, technology sort of, I think, underpins just about every organization these days, right? I mean, or at least every organization has an opportunity to use technology really pretty effectively to compete better and, get efficiencies, grow their revenue, all that. How have you leveraged technology inside of MarketWise to make it a competitive advantage for the whole organization? Tell us a little bit about how you guys think about that.
Yeah, so MarketWise, we're a financial publisher, right? So we publish, subscriptions to people through, we have analysts and people that, look at the markets and things of that sort. So we publish that financial information to our subscribers. So I always tell my boss all the time, we're a tech company, we're a development company. Like, that's what we do, right? Most companies these days, like you alluded to, are that. Yeah, you might have a different part of the business that you do, but in today's world, everything kind of revolves around the tech. So we really leverage the cloud a lot. I feel like that kind of gives us a bit of an advantage, because we can scale quickly. We can move and change, spin up different publications, different things, or even affiliates, things that we want to do very quickly. And using the cloud allows us to do that with the tools that we use. We're a huge Salesforce house, with, for CRM perspective and stuff. And that kind of leads me into why I chose JumpCloud in the first place, way back in the day, 7 years ago,
Yep.
when we kind of started down that path. So I think that kind of is really what spearheads our vision. That was the vision I was given in the beginning 7 years ago, where they basically tasked me with, hey, can you build out an IT infrastructure without putting any servers in a data center or in our building? And that was my marching orders. And
7 years ago, that's
it was tough.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's not
was not
exactly an
easy.
easy task.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you touched on it for a second there. What led you to JumpCloud, and why JumpCloud? Why was it helpful to you? Why is it still helpful to you today? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So when I was tasked with that vision, right? Hey, do everything in the cloud. We don't want to stand up data centers and deal with hardware, right? So I was looking around for single sign-on providers. That was my first kind of piece of that, because the person or the entity that was dealing with the IT for the company at the time, which I was kind of peeling us away from, they had like 50 passwords. It was a password to everything.
Yep.
So that was the biggest pet peeve when I went around and interviewed everybody. I said to them, I was like, if you could change anything, what would it be? And that was the biggest thing that everybody talked about was get rid of all these passwords. So I was like, okay, that's my first marching orders. That. So I'm looking for an SSO provider, but none of the SSO providers touched the endpoint, right? None of them touched the computer. They were just a cloud site you would go to access you into the application. So at the time, I was looking at Bidium was the company that we were kind of leaning
Yeah,
towards.
we were partnered with Bidium at one point. Yeah.
And there we go. You led right
Yeah.
into it. So I was talking to Bidium and I said, you guys don't do anything on the endpoint. I need something to control my endpoints because I don't want to go down the AD path. Because at the time, one, the best option would have been stand up my own AD server.
Right.
Two is Azure was real new. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to spin up AD in the cloud and kind of deal with all that. Plus, we're a Mac and PC house, and Macs and AD don't play great together. So Bidium's like, hey, we got this partner, JumpCloud. Why don't you guys talk and see if it's a fit? And I looked you guys up, got on the phone with some of your sales engineers, and loved it ever since. It was like the best thing since sliced bread, how you guys handled things. And I don't say that lightly. I'm a hard person to impress, and you guys did it. So
thank you.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the product. I thought it worked well. As time has gone on, you guys have implemented a lot of new features. You guys are definitely innovating very quickly. Our relationship was born at that moment, and I've never looked back. We've actually changed single sign-on providers, and since then, actually a few times. But JumpCloud's still a big piece of what we do, and I don't see us leaving anytime soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. You said something that I want to jump in on, because I think this is such a great thing that you did when you first started. So you said you went around and you interviewed everybody, right? Or you interviewed a lot of people. Yeah. I think that's such a cool thing to do, especially in IT. We kind of forget every once in a while that, hey, like if we walked around and got a ton of feedback, advice, and thoughts on what would work for people, that sort of makes our life even easier, right? So tell us a little bit about why you did that. And I kind of feel like that's a good piece of advice for every sort of person out there in the IT realm.
Sure.
To go spend time with some of their customers and their end users.
Yeah, I mean, I was new to the organization, so I figured, but this would be a good way for me to introduce myself and kind of get out there a little bit. So yeah, I started setting up meetings with, higher level executives and middle management and stuff like that. And then I slowly kind of worked my way down to the users and started to meet people. And I said, what are your biggest, hurdles? What are your biggest problems that you run into from an IT perspective? Because I was starting with a blank slate. So it was really nice to have that capability. I know not everybody does have that. They're kind of shoehorned into something that they need to deal with. So I interviewed them. Like I said, passwords was one of the biggest things that came up was how they kind of handled that. Another piece was just not having the capability on the machines that they needed to deal with. And a lot of the stuff that JumpCloud, I mean, just flipping a checkbox on the JumpCloud client to say, give that person admin access, and then I can check it again to get rid of it. Like, yep. That type of capability really, really helps down the road where, if you're trying to do something in IT with a small team and, you have people dispersed all over the place, definitely the world we live in today, right? You need to be able to touch that endpoint, reach out and make changes very easily without having to just get out of my chair and run over somebody. Yep. So yeah, so those interviews really helped kind of guide me down certain paths and things I wanted to do and help shape that vision.
And I bet help build relationships with people.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Right. So I mean, that's a big part of the game too, is building relationships with people. And again, we now are in remote world, COVID world, hybrid, and we start to forget you got to still work with people, right? And build relationships. So cool. Yeah. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. So, what advice would you have for us? You've known us for a long time now. You're watching the market. Give us some ideas on things that JumpCloud could go do in the future that you think would be pretty neat or helpful to you and to others out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do think that you guys have really gone down a good path. So I don't have a ton of like new things for you, I would say, that you guys should do, but I would just say keep doubling down on what you're currently doing, right?
Got it. Yep.
Seriously, I mentioned this a long time ago to one of the people at JumpCloud that I was talking with, that you guys need to own the endpoint. If you own the endpoint, I really think that's huge.
Yep.
From an from an IT perspective, keeping machines patched, keeping machines secure, having that
Configured
single point of
properly. Yeah,
identity.
all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, one of the hurdles that I'm actually running into right now, which maybe something you guys are kind of dabbing in a little bit, is just managing software and different things and versioning on
Yep.
laptops and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
Like I need to put, that person needs Zoom and keeping Zoom up to date, and what library Zoom uses, and all those types of things, and managing that piece of it, right? Which I think is like, the next progression for some of the stuff you guys are doing. But yeah, I mean, again, owning that endpoint, being able to manage every aspect of it, as well as the users and everything else, I think is huge. And you guys are going down that path. I know you guys have all the SSO
Yep.
capabilities now.
Stay tuned, right? Because I
Yeah,
think we're going to do a
I'm
bunch of
excited.
that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, last question for me, and we'll go on the fun side, right? So let's think 10 years out. Let's think, 10, 12 years ago, the iPhone came out, right? So let's go 10, 12 years in the future. What's going to happen? Like, what's going on? What's your prediction for 10 years from now, 12 years from now? What are we going to be talking about? What are we going to be thinking about?
I mean, it's so tough to say. It's moving so fast, right? I just, and it sounds probably cliche-ish just, to even say this, but just AI is kind of changing everything, right? So I think we're just going to have, like I have fun playing around with Chat GPT, just having some fun with it. It's a
Yeah, for
really
sure.
crazy cool tool.
And now there's Bard and the Bing
So many
stuff
more
coming out. Yeah, there's all
Yeah, I
everybody's
mean, I
into
just
it.
think from a security perspective, that's a scary side of the house, right? To where these things can evolve and change so quickly on their own without having just some guy sitting behind his keyboard kind of pulling the strings, right? So I really think that's going to change the landscape from a protective side of the house, from identity to everything else to how we handle things, right? So I see a lot of challenges coming down the road with any security provider, whether it's you guys, because you are doing a lot of security for the endpoints and for the users and patching and those types of things, all the way out to security vendors like Sophos and those types of guys that kind of do security on the endpoints, and for them to figure out better ways of securing our infrastructure and our endpoints and our users from all of this new technologies that are just coming out so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, AI is such an interesting one. It is sort of the topic du jour right now, but I really wonder if we can use it on the good side too, right? Can we really sort of have these AI systems figure out like who are the real people attacking, or what are the real issues coming in that we got to deal with, and we're not going to get worried about the millions of things that don't matter, right? And if we can help sort of do that, maybe we can use AI for good and make it that much more protective, and hopefully this crazy security stuff that goes on now day in, day out, gets a little bit easier, because it is overwhelming for all of us.
It is, yeah. And being more on the security side, I kind of lean into the compliance side of things as well, right? So, whether it's PCI or CCPA, GDPR, whatever. And, that stuff is changing the landscape as well, and changing things so quickly. So I'm starting to kind of get into this. My catchphrase now is like continuous audit, right? Like,
that's
how
smart.
can you get yourself into a phase where everything that you do, you're constantly having this audit thing happen along the way? And I think AI could probably help out with some of that stuff too, where everything's being audited all the time. So that way, if something does happen, it's more of an immediate thing, instead of like, oh, quarterly, I find this, right? Because by then it's going to be too late.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if an AI system was tracking all that, and anytime there was an exception, it's alerting you and saying, hey, something happened here. Do you want to put some notes in there? Do you want to tell us what happened? Whatever it is, so that you get it right there, and you don't have to go back and do that. So
100%, yes.
yeah,
100%.
neat. All right, well, thank you for taking time. I appreciate it. Let's see what happens in the future, but we really appreciate your support, and thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Sure thing, no problem. Thanks again for having me.
Awesome.